Hello, I'm Susan Fagan, your 9th District State Representative. Thank you for tuning in for my weekly updates on the 2011 session of the legislature. And thank you also for trusting me to represent you and for watching this brief legislative update today. As I mentioned last week, I've been very concerned that with less than 3 weeks left in the legislative session, the majority party had yet to offer lawmakers and the public a look at their budget proposal. After 85 days in the 105-day session, the budget proposal was finally released on April 4th. Even though the bill was just now made available, the Ways and Means Committee held a hearing on it the same day. I understand the urgency, but not allowing the nearly 500-page document to be looked at by the public and lawmakers before having to testify on it and ask questions is unfair and further erodes public trust in our government. That said, the nonpartisan budget staff was asked to speak to House Republican members so we would have a better understanding of how the budget was crafted. I'd like to tell you that it is sustainable, focused on priorities, and puts in place efficiencies, but it does not. And here's a breakdown on the Democrats' budget proposal and a little history about how we arrived at a $5.1 billion spending gap. The 2009-11 budget is roughly $28 billion. The 2011-13 budget, which begins July 1st, is more than $32 billion. Now that's an increase of $4 billion in expenditures. They spend about 14% more this budget cycle than last, which is the total amount of new revenues the state expects to collect. To understand why we still have a $5.1 billion spending gap, you have to go back to 2006 when we had a $2 billion surplus. At that time, our colleagues across the aisle increased spending more than 33%, when revenue was growing at roughly 15%. So budget writers knew when they wrote that budget that spending was outpacing tax collections, but they passed it anyway. So here we are today. We're on the heels of a pretty bad recession and massive job losses. I truly believe that now's the time to reform government spending, not rely on double-digit tax collections that are very rare. The budget that was presented has some gimmicks like one-time fund transfers to pay for ongoing programs. We simply don't know how those programs will be funded in the future. In other words, this is another unsustainable budget which creates further uncertainties for our citizens. Additionally, when we took the one-time federal bailout money last year of nearly $5 billion, the Democrats chose to spend it on programs that will need a funding source to be solvent in the future. It defunds parks while adding a new fee, a $30 state park pass to pay for them. Now, we all love our state parks, but taxpayers paid for the land, they've paid user fees to participate in activities on park land, yet we are now asking taxpayers to pay more for parks. I believe we can do better than that. Just to give you a contrast, House Republicans will be offering a budget amendment that will be sustainable. Our budget proposal does not use one-time funds for ongoing programs, and it adheres to the principles most Washington families are using right now to balance their family budget. Here are just a few of the principles our top budget writer used to put together an alternative for Washington taxpayers. It must be sustainable. It cannot use gimmicks like shifting one-time dollars to keep ongoing programs. It must reflect the priorities of government process, and it must include reforms and efficiencies where cost-effective, and cannot include new or higher taxes. Voters made their wishes clear last fall when they voted to repeal the taxes from last session. By avoiding the games in budgeting, our budget creates transparency for taxpayers and certainty for families who are struggling right now. Our budget also spends $1 billion less than the majority party and still leaves a reserve of nearly $800 million. We cannot prolong the budget roller coaster by throwing out catchy sound bites that don't have any basis in reality. Washingtonians want real solutions that address spending for the long term and allow them some tax freedom to be able to take care of the families, friends, and neighbors. I hope you will offer your feedback on the budget this week. We may vote on the budget as soon as this Saturday, April 9th. My door is always open, and I welcome feedback on these and other issues. If you need assistance working with a state agency or locating a state service, please call my office directly. If you'd like to meet with me, just call my office, and we can find a mutually workable date either here in Olympia or in the district. Our phone number is 360-786-7942, and if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. My goal is to provide outstanding constituent services, so never hesitate to contact me. I'm Representative Susan Fagan. Thank you again for allowing me to serve you.